welcome to episode 30 of the Owl Diary. Hi there, so I'm here with Bailey, our barn owl. He's screeching a little bit, and the noise he makes, that is the sound that barn owls make. So if you ever hear a screeching sound, perhaps on an evening, rather than a hooting sound, then it is a barn owl that you can hear in this country in Great Britain. Whereas the hooting noises you hear will generally be tawny owls, which look a bit like this. So you can see they're very different looking. And we're going to fly Bailey here in the gardens. It's a lovely day here. It's a Thursday in the Museum Gardens in York, and it's autumn. Autumn has definitely sprung upon us now. We've got leaves everywhere. We're not quite wading through the leaves yet, but we're getting there. If I do a little pan around, you'll just see the autumn colours starting to come through. And anyone who's watched the videos before may remember me banging on about summer and how much I love summer. But autumn, it does get very beautiful, doesn't it? We have all the different colours on the trees, these reds and yellows and oranges and things. So before we fly Bailey, who I can tell is very keen to fly. He knows that when I'm over here, he knows the food's kept over here, because of course he gets fed when he flies. So he's very excited, I know he's ready. But before we do, we must weigh him, just to make sure it's the right flying weight. And recently, someone said to me, "So how do you weigh him then? Use a pair of kitchen scales?" I was like, yeah, actually, yeah, that's what we do. So what we've got here is our little mobile scale. We've got our perch here, a little bit of soft AfroTurf there, and I've got it now zeroed in on there, the pounds and ounces, what we're going to fly today. He should be weighing somewhere on the 10.5 sort of area. So if you take a look there, if you have a look at the scale, you can see it's 10.3. So he's just a fraction under his usual 10.5 average. He'll fly really well at anything between 10 and about 10.75 ounces. At 11 ounces, he'll fly no problem somewhere he's very familiar, like the woods where he lives, maybe even in here, in the gardens where we are regularly. But any higher than we wouldn't fly him anywhere else. So what we're going to do is get the telemetry on in a second, little transmitter, take off the equipment, and we'll give him a good fly. So flying the birds regularly, just like Bailey here is doing, is really important for their enrichment, for their health and fitness, but it's also good for us as well. It's lovely for us to get out and fly them on a regular basis, just like Robin's doing here today. One of our volunteers has been helping out for over a year now. And when we fly them, it's really a good way of preparing them for the events coming up, of course. So this weekend we have more flying displays at Farmer Copley's for their pumpkin festival event. So it's really important that we have the birds conditioned all the time when they're flying. Sometimes they have time off when they're not flying free, they're just in an aviary, and that's when we can feed them extra food because we don't have to worry about their flying weight so much. But today is a nice day to fly, little bit breezy, not too windy. Bailey doesn't get blown away too much. It's just another day here in autumn enjoying flying the birds. What do you say, Bailey? Anything to add to the camera? This way? Guess not. I'm out in the woods on a day when I would normally be flying some of the birds to give them a bit of exercise. Because we've actually had lots of flying displays recently, we don't have to fly all the birds every day. They can have some days off, some days of rest. But unfortunately, it's rather wet today, as you can probably tell. I've got my hood up, so we're not on display today at all. We would have been at Farmer Copley's, and of course we're going to be there later this week as the weather dries up and throughout the rest of the half term right to the end of October. So a bit of a day off in a way. I've got some chances to get some other bits and pieces done, some other tasks, because as you can imagine, if I'm out all day working with the birds, there's no time to do anything else you'd normally do during the day. So it's quite important to have the odd day free. Now sometimes I'm asked, can you fly birds of prey in the rain? The best answer, the simplest answer, is no. A bit of light rain's okay, but anything heavy, of course, the bird will start to get wet. Now, most birds of prey have waterproofing in the oils that are on their feathers, and this means they are reasonably resistant to some rain. However, after a while of flying, it will start to soak in. And the barn owl is a little bit different because they get wet much quicker, because they have practically no waterproofing in their oils whatsoever. So we really have to be very careful with the barn owl and not fly that in the rain at all. And that's why sometimes flying shows can be cancelled or postponed if the weather is particularly wet. Wind is another issue, of course. Wind isn't a big problem. You can fly birds of prey in the wind. You've just got to consider where you're flying them. Could they fly off into an area you don't want them to fly to if the wind takes them in that direction, for example? And when you're again flying barn owls and even hawks and things, they can just get blown about and not do quite what they want to do. So for example, let's say you're flying the hawk through the arms of your volunteers to demonstrate how good hawks are at flying through narrow gaps naturally. The wind will just take them off course and they end up sitting in a tree rather than going for the arms as they're supposed to. Therefore, ideal conditions for flying birds of prey is a nice calm day, dry, maybe sunny, with no or very little wind. Of course, when we're flying falcons, it's nice to have a bit of wind because they will use that wind sometimes to gain extra speed and make the flying they're doing more dynamic and exciting. Okay, it's time for this week's Falconry Term of the Week.
The Falconry Term of the Week.
So this week's falconry term is the word cadge. Now, a cadge is a piece of equipment that would be used to transport a number of different raptors at the same time, probably wearing hoods, a bit like as you can see here, and it can be placed on the floor and they're tethered to the edges of it there, or you can actually have it around you, a bit like a giant belt, and walk around the field. So it's very much used in traditional falconry, hunting with birds of prey, if you've got more than one bird. It makes it easier than having to transport lots of different bird boxes, and of course, if you're not using boxes and you just have your falcons hooded, you'd need more than one person with you if you've actually got more than one falcon. So it makes life a bit easier if you've got more than one bird you're going to fly out in the field. So that's this week's word of the week, the word cadge. Well, it's another day and another event, and I'm here at Farmer Copley's again for their pumpkin experience, or pumpkin festival as you call it. Have you ever seen such a field of pumpkins? They plant absolutely thousands and thousands, and the turnout here is wonderful. So I just want to say this week has been in many ways amazing. As I mentioned in previous videos, I was involved with the show of Jesus Christ Superstar. We've now finished the performances. I have an absolute blast. I want to thank everyone involved, the cast, the crew, everybody, because it's not just been fun on stage, but backstage as well with everybody. Really have enjoyed it. And as well, just other things this week. I think it's probably been the best week of the year for me personally. All I can say is I hope you're having a good time as well as we slip it into autumn. And of course, I'm going to do the special Owl Diary video next week, a bit of a Pumpkin Festival special, a Halloween special video, all filmed here at the Pumpkin Festival. But for now, I'd like to say cheerio and tune in for next week's video. Bye for now.